Amarone might be the quintessential cold weather red wine. Amarone della Valpolicella is from the Veneto in northern Italy. It's named after the city of Venice. It's one of Italy's most expensive, famous, and coveted red wines. A lot of European wines are rich with history, but Amarone is a relatively new invention in terms of wine. Amarone wasn't really in commercial production until the 50s. I know in some previous videos I said the 60s. I had to re-fact check. Sorry, I made some mistakes. That's the thing about wine. There's so much to know that you make mistakes from time to time. Amarone is not the name of a grape variety. It's made up of several grape varieties from Veneto, including Corvina, Corvinone, Molinara, Ocelletta, and Rondinella. Besides Corvina, a lot of these grapes don't produce wines that have big body, so locals producers wanted to make bigger red wines. Thus, Amarone is born. Amarone is a dry wine that's based off a sweet wine technique that was probably invented by the Greeks. Amarone is made by drying grapes. The grapes are picked and then they're put into boxes. In the past, they were put into lofts to dry, but these days they're put in humidity-controlled conditions so rot doesn't develop. In essence, those grapes become raisins. They start to shrivel. Those dried grapes can't be vinified until after the 1st of December, except in crazy vintages. That drying process helps metabolize some of the acids, and it also helps polymerize some of the tannins. That's just a fancy way of saying it gives Amarone that signature velvety, creamy mouthfeel. And since the grapes are concentrated, there's more sugar. Alcohol and dry Amarones tend to be pretty high, good up to 16, 17 degrees. Even though they're dry ones, there's a touch of a residual sugar left over, more than standard dry red wines. Amarone then needs to be aged for at least 2 years, and then Amarone Riserva needs to be aged at least 4 years before it's released onto the market. That's by rule. In practice, since these are big red wines, they're usually aged for a lot longer, sometimes up to 5 years. I have 5 wines here today that come from the vintages of 2015, 16, 17, and 18, and all of these are current releases. You'll see 2 different types of Amarone della Valpolicella. You'll see what just standard says Amarone della Valpolicella. Then you'll also see Amarone della Valpolicella Classico. If you imagine on a map, the region which Amarone della Valpolicella is made is like this, and then Amarone della Valpolicella Classico is a little bit smaller. Those are some of the most coveted Amarones, although both kinds can be excellent. Because of the cost of drying the grapes, the amount of labor, and also you're getting a lot less yield when you shrink down the grapes, Amarones tend to be pretty expensive. Some of Italy's most sought after, most expensive red wines are Amarone della Valpolicella, namely those like Del Forno or Quintarelli that can go up to $500 a bottle. Amarone is the dry version of Recioto della Valpolicella, which is also made by drying grapes. However, the fermentations don't finish all the way through. Therefore, there's still residual sugar left in the grape must, and the wines become sweet wines. One of Italy's most underrated wines, in my opinion. Valpolicella is a beautiful area in northern Italy. It's extremely hilly. Veneto produces more wine than any region in Italy, and the criticism of Amarone producers is sometimes those wineries can become factories. Bigger production where us wine geeks want smaller artisanal wineries. When I started out drinking wine, I really loved Amarone because of the big, bold, rich flavors. As I started to drink more white wines, more medium-bodied reds with finesse, I got away from Amarone, but a lot of people love it and a lot of you drink it as well. I have 5 wines here ranging from 70 to $100, even a couple of Riservas mixed in. Let's see what they taste like. Luxurious red wines tasting out of a luxurious red glass. I have my Gabriel Glas Gold Edition. These are hand blown. These are lighter than Zaltos. I don't have a link because they're always sold out, but I just thought I'd let you know. As always, I Corvin these and I had somebody mix them up for me. Wine number 1 here. It's a little bit lighter for an Amarone. Doesn't really have super deep color. I talk about how I don't enjoy Amarone as much, but whenever I drink a bottle or go back to tasting, I'm like, oh man, maybe I should drink these a little bit more. It smells wonderful. It's got this red cherry, just a touch of raisin, not too much. Definitely mocha type flavors. Just a hint of tobacco. I really like that mocha feeling, and I'm not talking about milk chocolate. I'm thinking more dark dark chocolate. Oak doesn't show up here. It smells really nice, maybe even a little floral. Just got that wonderful Amarone mouthfeel. The name comes from Amaro, which means bitter in Italian. You have that nice Italianness, bitter-like tannins. The alcohol comes up a little bit, although since Amarones have a touch of residual sugar, that kind of brings down the perception of alcohol, so it's not too much. Finish here is extremely long. This is a really good wine. Really good wine. Let's move on to number 2. 2 has much more menthol flavors. The mint really stands out. There are still some cherry flavors. I get like kind of a touch of red apple skin. Not as much mocha. You have the mintiness, the fruitiness, a little tobacco. The thing about Amarones, even though they're higher in alcohol, the mouthfeel is really round, which a lot of people like. And then there's just a touch of grip in the tannins. I've noticed as I've started going back and tasting more Amarones again, they're not really humongous, massive wines like you'd expect. Yes, they're bigger in body, bigger in alcohol, but this is quite good. Quite good. The finish on these is what's killer. 3 looks a little bit darker, a little bit more dried fruit flavor, some more dried cherry, dried cranberry, even a touch of raisin. A lot of chocolate, just smells a little bit bigger. This is like the type of red wine you give to somebody, they smell like, oh, that smells like a big wine. This is a big, massive, impressive wine. I feel like most people are gonna like this style, a little more darker fruit, bigger, some big time tannins. I really liked number 1, more of the red fruit type flavors, but it's still good wine. 4 has the most mocha. Number 1 was more red fruit driven, 3 was more dark fruit, 2 was more menthol. 4 kind of brings the mocha and just that touch of red fruit, yet some dried dark fruit flavors as well, which I like. This is done really well. It's really attractive. It's bright. For a big red wine, this is serious stuff. Those of you that watch the channel know my palate tends to go more towards medium-bodied red wines, more red fruit type of flavors. But that's a super impressive wine. Let's move on to number 5 here. 5 also smells balanced, nice mocha, red cherry flavors. This has got the most tobacco. Still gonna get that black cherry, black raspberry. It's not dried fruit flavors, it's still pretty much fresh fruit. Impressive length, balanced. I have to say 5 and 3 definitely felt like the biggest, the richest, the most full in body. So if you like that style, that's probably what you're gonna go for. I'm ready for the reveal. These have some slight differences in flavor, differences in richness, but I think that there's an Amarone here for everybody, even me. Somebody that is not the hugest fan of Amarone. Let's start with number 3. I think 3 is the one that most people are gonna think is the best. I scored it the lowest out of these 5. I still gave a high score, but the lowest. Not my style of wine. Bigger, richer, more dark fruit flavors. This is what a lot of people think of when they think of Amarone. More dried fruit flavors. I gave it 93 points. I still thought it was an outstanding wine. I just preferred some of these other ones more. Let's take a look, shall we? This is the Tedeschi Capital Monte Olmi Amarone della Valpolicella Classico Riserva. So it's got all those things in the name I was talking about. 2015, 90 bucks. I had the 13, the last one I had, which was super impressive wine. Really good stuff. This is the type of wine that's gonna get much higher scores than I gave it. Comes in at 17% alcohol. It's just bigger than what I preferred. Still, I thought it was an excellent wine. Next up, number 1, 93 plus points, a little bit lighter in color, more red fruit driven. It's a wine that I really love. I mean, I absolutely love this wine. I think a lot of people might think it's a little bit too light for Amarone, although I know a lot of producers are trying to make Amarones a little bit more drinkable. Let's see, lighter in color, even a little bit more floral, 93 plus points. This is the Amarone that I think I would really prefer to drink right now out of all these 5. Let's take a look here. I think some people might think it's a little bit too light. This is the Remo Farina, the Montefante Amarone della Valpolicella Classico Riserva 2016, 105 bucks. Family-owned producer. This is really nice stuff. I know it's not cheap whatsoever, but I think it's absolutely delicious wine. 2016, fantastic vintage in Amarone. Actually, in all of Italy and a lot of Europe, I never skimp on buying 2016 2016 wines from Europe, be it red or white. I think this is delicious, and I might have some of that tonight. I might drink that. That's really nice. Okay, we have two here tied at 94 points, number 2 and number 5. Let's go with number 2. I thought it was the one with the most menthol, had some mintiness, had a bit of red apple skin. I actually thought it was the Tedeschi because I knew what all these wines were before I bagged them, then somebody mixed them up randomly because I don't have another assistant to help procure these wines. Regardless, usually menthol, that's a signature of some of Tedeschi's wines. 94 points. Let's take a look. Very smaller producer. This is the Roccolo Callisto Amarone della Valpolicella 2016. Amarone is not the focus, I know, of this producer. There's only 1,500 bottles made in this vintage. This comes in at $85. I think the rule in Valpolicella is 65 or 70% of your production that can actually go towards Amarone. They do not focus on this. This might be a harder wine to find because it's a smaller producer. 2016 again, cool vintage, orange capsule. I like it a lot. That mentholness really reminded me of stuff you'll find from Coonawarra. Sometimes you get from Loire Cabernet Franc. I really liked it. Okay, also tied, number 5, lots of tobacco type flavors. It's the one that had the most tobacco. Brilliant balance, 94 points. Man, these are some big time wines, 94 points. This is a wine that I always love. This is the Zenato Amarone della Valpolicella Classico 2018. So the youngest in the bunch, comes in at $70. This is one Amarone Zenato that I will consistently drink when I see it on the shelf. I think it's a wonderful wine. 2018. I don't know too much about that vintage in Valpolicella. All I know is this showed really nice. Kudos to Zenato. The top wine, Mocha Mocha Mocha. Bright, balanced. I thought this was outstanding. I gave it 96 points. Massive score, and I know what's left. This is the Tenuta Sant'Antonio Campo dei Gigli Amarone della Valpolicella 2017. I know this is a single vineyard wine. This comes in at $79. 2017. I know it was more of a warmer vintage in Italy. 16% alcohol. Sorry, I didn't tell you all the alcohols. Everything here is 16, except the Monte Olmi 17 degrees. A long time ago when I didn't know anything about Amarone, this is one of the first producers that I drank from when I was in Singapore doing a wine dinner. I was impressed with them then, and look at their wines showing super nice. They sent me a pack of wines and everything I tasted from them was absolutely delicious. I think it's also a cool thing, the top wine here, even though Amarone della Valpolicella Classico is the wines that are more coveted. This was not a Classico, but it still was awesome. So tell me, do you like Amarone della Valpolicella? Do you have any favorite producers? I'd love to hear. Drop it in the comments below.